Good evening, everyone, and we welcome you tonight to our episode of Beyond the Pew. Tonight, I'm your host, Pastor Lynn Blackburn, coming to you from the campus and the auditorium here at the Clinton Family Worship Center. And we're so glad to be with you tonight because tonight I have a very, very special guest and a close friend of mine that he's going to share some important things with you and I. Going to speak about music and what music does in regards to our worship unto the Lord. So glad that we're here again. We want you to take time to share this with your family and friends. So go ahead, you that are watching, share this because we're going to speak about leading into worship and some biblical facts in regards to that. But would you make welcome with me tonight my very special guest, Minister of Music here at the Clinton Family Worship Center, Kenyon Stevens. Good to have you, my friend. God bless you, man.
Glad
Good to see
here.
you tonight.
Thank you.
Hope all was going well.
Going well. Can't complain.
Good and well. I am so glad the way we had things set up tonight here because right in this little circle, this is where your worship begins on a Sunday morning. Before we dive into a little bit of that, Kenyon, with your permission, I kind of want to go back into your history a little bit. Who is Kenyon Stevens?
I've been blessed to have been born into a family that has a foundation of Christian. I have a lot of pastors, a lot of singers, musicians, grandmothers, great aunts that believe in the power of prayer. So I was born into a family that believe in worshiping God, and that is where my foundation comes from. So from the beginning, from the time I was a kid, I remember playing the drums at church. I remember every Sunday, it wasn't a rule per se, it was an unspoken rule that we must be at church singing and praising God. But the cool thing about it is, even though we were a Christian-based family, they still allowed me to be who I am. So I listened to all kinds of music, rap music, I wore baggy clothes, I did it all. And they allowed me just to be myself. But at the end of the day, they knew that come Sunday morning, you're going to be in this church.
So music came to you at an early age.
Oh yeah, from the very beginning. Yeah, because my granddad, they had a quartet group, gospel quartet group. My uncles played all the instruments. They played bass, drums, keyboard. My granddad's son played the guitar while he was singing. So from the time I was born right into music.
So in your atmosphere, in your world, you were surrounded by talented, gifted people.
Yep.
But you never took any type of lesson, maybe? I don't know.
I took piano lessons when I was in elementary school, maybe 2 months, but it wasn't for me. It was too structured. It wasn't what I wanted. But yeah, I took 2 months when I was in elementary school, and I didn't touch it again. I focused on playing the drums.
Let me say to the audience tonight, when I look at Kenyon on Sunday mornings here on the stage playing, and I address this directly to you as well as to the audience, and I don't say this just to be saying it, but your skills and your gift to me is so amazing. You have what a lot of people are not inclined with, and that's a very special gift. I've had pastors in the community to tell me that, Pastor, you have a jewel, you have a gem in Kenyon, and you have kind of set a standard and a bar for a lot of us.
Wow.
And when did music, because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a little naive when it comes to this, but when did music, how did you begin to develop the skill that you have now?
I would say it started in 2006. I was a senior in high school, and I was looking forward to trying out for Campbell's University basketball team, and unfortunately, I got hurt right before the tryouts, and I had to rehab, and then fast forward 6 months. First day on campus, I ruptured my Achilles, so I had to move all my stuff out of the dorm, come back home, and I refer to that to my family as the week I died, because at that point, I grew up in church. I knew who God was, but I was focused on basketball. I didn't care about anything else. And God put a immediate halt on all that.
Wow, I did not know this.
Yeah, yeah. So immediate halt. So I'm in my room, depressed, didn't know what, I couldn't go nowhere. I was in my bed and I was praying. And I was like, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I humbled immediately. I humbled myself. Like, okay, all these years I played drums, I was in church, but I was focused on basketball, but I didn't put you first. So now I'm going to put you first, and I will do whatever you want me to do. I'll even play the keyboard if that's what you think that I should do. So from that time on, that week, next week, I called my uncle. I said, hey, can you give me a gospel CD, a gospel album? And he sent me a CD by a lady named Judy Kristen McAllister. And that CD was, the album name was Raise the Praise. And I listened to that CD. So like, that was the only thing I listened to for 4 or 5 weeks. It was like maybe a 12, 13 track album. And her worship, she's a worship leader, and her worship, it instilled in me what it means to be a worship leader. And her musician instilled in me how it is to be sensitive to worship music and how to not overplay and how to just bring the people into the presence of God. So that album, I would say, had the biggest impact on my journey as a musician. It taught me how to minister to people through my words and through just my worship, because it was just that sweet of a spirit in that CD, and it just set the foundation for where I am today.
You know, I have watched you on Sunday mornings, and I don't say this to inflate your ego or anything. I don't think that's even would be an issue. But to see you play two instruments at the same time, again, it's mind-boggling how the mind can work in that function with your right hand on the is it a B3 organ, and then your left hand on these keyboards, and if need be, moving over here to do something with your computer. That is just something special.
Yeah.
And I can turn around when the Spirit of the Lord is moving on you. I can turn around and look at the audience, and they are all in amazement. Everybody's focused on what God is doing in your life, and it's really a gift that should never lie dormant.
Well, I'm just as amazed as y'all are, honestly, because I don't set out to like, I'm gonna play 3 or 4 instruments and I'm gonna sing at the same time. No, that
that's
terrifies,
right. I forgot about
that terrifies me. Like,
yeah,
that's not something that.
But you don't show that.
Well, that's the confidence I have in God.
There you go.
Because it's not with me myself, honestly. It's just I just pray, I like, God, I'm nervous, but I'm gonna make it happen through you.
You know, since you said that, people often say to me that, you know, I always look calm and cool and collected behind the pulpit, but each and every Sunday, there's that little bit of nerves in your belly, and I'm grateful for that. Oh, yeah. It's not a lack of confidence in God nor myself, but it keeps me on the edge. Never get so comfortable in what I'm doing, because there's always room to improve.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, how long have you been involved? And I know you and I have been together in this ministry for several years, but how long have you been involved in our choir, in our ministry of music now?
I came here in 2011, so about 11 and a half, 12 years.
Okay.
And then within the past 7 months, I became the worship leader. So yeah, I put in 11 years before that happened.
And you learned a lot during that process.
Oh, I sure did. Just sitting here and watching the other leaders lead us into worship, and as I said, my family is huge, so I have choir directors in my family. So I've, over the years since I've been little, I've seen different leaders and how they instruct people, how they lead people, and I've restored it in my brain. So now I'm like, okay, this didn't work for them, so I'm not gonna do that to my people. You know, just over the years, I've had the experience with seeing what worked and what doesn't, and just how to be a personable leader.
Well, what I also find intriguing, because worship is so valuable to our church, not only to our church function, but to our lives. But even while I'm preaching, and I say this so humbly, but humble, you and I knit so well when it comes to me preaching and you playing the music, and how you enhance the preaching at certain times in the sermon, that you highlight it, that elevates me, because with music, there's power in music.
For sure.
Even there's power in secular music.
Yeah, it sure is.
And so why shouldn't there be power in worship music or celebrative music in the church? And that's, I think to me, church should be an exciting place.
Yep.
It should be a celebrating place. And I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but I get nervous in a quiet service.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
but you, with the gift that God's given you, you create an atmosphere for the saints of God to celebrate even while I'm preaching. You actually, through your anointing, you fuel me,
Wow.
but it knits so well. And I like that team
Oh, yeah.
effort that we have. Explain to me about the importance of worship.
I think it's vital to us as Christians because we could read scriptures and we can pray, but at the same time we have to humble ourselves and just lift our hands up and just thank God. And essentially that's what we do every Sunday morning. We come in here and sing songs and say thank you, Jesus, for what you've done for me over the week, or through the years. And to me, worship is one of the most important things we can do, is giving thanks.
I don't know if you could answer this, but I'm confident that your knowledge in the word is strong. But Satan is intimidated by true worship. And have you ever felt the enemy attack you while you're on the stage and you're not performing, but you're worshiping, and feel like you're never good enough?
Oh yeah, all the time. Because to my detriment, I'm always in my head, and that's where Satan likes to be. Tell you that you can't sing or you can't play, or people out there, they don't like the way you play or they don't like the way you sing, and you're not effective. So Satan always putting those thoughts in my mind, but I know that who's the true king, so I lean on that.
Right.
That's what Satan does.
He fears worship. He doesn't fear me paying tithes. He doesn't even fear me coming to church. He doesn't fear me too terribly much if I'm sitting here listening to a preacher preach. But what he does fear is minister of music like yourself, a worship leader, you leading the choir and the team to worship the Lord, and that are in the pew following that lead, you're entering us into the presence of the Lord. He fears worship.
Because there's power in worship.
There's power in worship, and extends from the music, because there's power in music. It creates, I can be at home working in my shop or doing something, and I have worship music in my ear pods, and I'm always feeding me worship.
Yeah.
And it's not difficult for me to worship the Lord, even in a place where no one else is worshiping.
Yep, me either.
Because it's my life.
Right, and that's my job for the people that comes in here who are not at that level, who are shy, or they feel like, I don't know what to, I'm going to push you. I'm going to push you into that area of you're not comfortable, but this is what you should do.
Right.
And lift your hands and give God praise.
Right. Because whether we're sinners or saints, we got something to be thankful for.
That's so true. That is so true.
And so I may not be the church goer, because some folks can be professional church goers, but I know that in this ministry we take our worship very serious unto the Lord, because worship doesn't change God, it changes us.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't change the circumstance, but it changes us. What are some of the lessons, Kenyon, that you have learned thus far in the role that you're in right now?
Okay, yeah, I would say one of the big lessons that I've learned is that seasons change, that I may get new members into the choir and some may leave, and just realizing, just let God be God, and I cannot, because God is the one that opens doors. I'm not going to be the one to close it. I'm going to let God do what he does. And the thing is, when I took over this position, a month later, we lost the backbone of our ministry, which is Ethan and Blake. And when they came to me and told me they were leaving, some people would have been like, no, don't do that. Like, come stay. Immediately, I'm like, awesome. Like, I'm happy for y'all. Like, let us know if there's anything we can do. But, on the inside, I knew we was losing a big piece, but I was more happy for them, for God to be able to use them at another place. So,
And and they are super guys.
oh yeah,
They are so, and they're still part of our ministry.
they are.
And but they went to help another ministry, and that's our job, is to raise up sons and daughters to not just be in house alone, but to go out into the world. And I celebrate the fact, and they're some of the super people.
Yeah, I love those guys.
I do too. This church loves them, and they always will have a place.
Always.
Always will have a place here. But you're right. People come and people go. My ministry of 31 years of pastor, and I've seen it all my life. But God sets the standards. So, what would your advice be to a song leader in another church when he or she is experiencing people coming and people going? What could you advise them?
I would say just be content, but don't be complacent. But just be satisfied with what you have. You may have two singers, and just work with the two singers, because God is going to open the door. You may have more. You may not have a drummer, so use what you have. Whether it's a computer, just work. Be content with where you are, and just use the resources around you, and God will open up doors and spread your ministry.
So, for them not to be discouraged.
Exactly. Don't be discouraged. That's right. Don't be discouraged.
That is so awesome. So in this now role, you're learning a lot, but at the same time, you're teaching us about worship, because it comes from the heart. Because God seeks true worship, that will worship Him in spirit and in truth. So truth and worship hand in hand. You can't separate the two, but when we worship, it's an understanding of who God is. It's me in the presence of God, not that He is forgotten, but God, here's what I know about you.
And the hard thing is you could be depressed, you could be sick, or you can be going through the worst time of your life. And sometimes that's the best praise, when you can praise Him in the storm, like the song that we sing here.
Yeah.
Just praising God in advance, because right now it don't look good, but I'm going to praise you anyway.
When Terry Mercer sings that song, that's his testimony.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, anybody can sing it, but it's something special when Terry sings that
Because
song.
he's singing it from a place of experience.
From a place of experience, because he and his wife had been in a very low place in their life. During the loss of their child, but when he sings it, like as you stated, it comes from his heart, his spirit, his truth.
Yep.
That he has of knowledge of God.
Yes, so true.
And I love the fact that this church here celebrates Jesus. Even we've experienced the celebration of someone that's passed on, and we celebrate their life, and even during funeral services, not being disrespectful by no means, but I've had members who passed on that always told me, if you do my funeral, make it celebrated. And you would come in, others, and the choir would come in, and you would sing songs that gives God glory in honor of that person's life. This ministry is about celebrating Jesus.
Yeah.
There's so much other stuff that we could frown on, but we can celebrate Jesus. And you help create that atmosphere, my friend.
Hey, it's just a blessing.
So I'm kind of glad your basketball career didn't work out.
Yeah, I am too.
Let's talk about our kids, man. About a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, you started working with our youth. What inspired you?
Honestly, after Jax sung his song Jesus Rose, so people were like, Jax, when you gonna sing again? When you gonna sing again? And he asking me when he's gonna sing. So, and then I've had other little kids around his age, like, they like the song and they like to sing. And I'm like, as soon as I took over, I'm like, we have to get a kids choir. And that's the heart of, that's where it started, just being able to give the kids a platform to sing. And honestly, how things transpired over the next couple months with Easter, that was all God, because I just saw a kids choir, and years ago, Jonathan brought a song called Remember. And it's the song that they sung on Easter, and it's Remember. And I don't think we ever sung it, but it always been in my spirit. And one of the lyrics is down in the valley where waters rise, I'm still believing hope is alive. And I'm like, I can hear kids singing that.
Down in the valley where waters rise, I'm still believing.
Hope is alive. So I had kids choir number one, and I said, I want them to sing Remember. And that's the only thing I wrote with. Nobody knew where they're gonna stand, how many kids is gonna show up. But we put it out there as a church, and the result was Easter Sunday.
So you gave an opportunity.
That's what it was, pretty much.
Oh, wow. And this is no joke, Minister Kenyon. I have watched that service probably 10 times.
Wow.
Not to hear me preach. I skipped the preaching part. But I look at those children. They were not singing Bible.
Right, the little easy.
Yeah. It wasn't a cute performance. Cuteness just came along with it.
Right.
But they sung worship songs. If you have not watched our Easter service, you need to go back and watch it. I don't know how many views we've already had on that program, but it's up there. But when they sung, being in the audience was one thing, and it's a blessing. But when you look at the replay and see their faces, their eyes, their gesture, they were in worship mode.
They were. I'm sitting here playing, and I saw a couple of them raise their hands, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
But they were into it, they enjoyed it, and the worship level in this church went up to another level.
So you would think kids leading worship, you would think it's like, oh, you can sit there and think, oh, they cute. But for the fact that you can be in worship and kids are doing the singing.
All those views had nothing to do with me. It was about that choir.
Or me either. It was them.
It was them. And they loved it. They were part of a service, not just to be cute. But you got plans for them. What's some of the plans?
Yeah, so the plan is for them to have a Sunday of every month to sing, to lead us in worship. It'll just be them. They're going to sing their songs and give God praise and lead us in worship. So I'm excited about that because even now they're ready. They're like, are we practicing again this Tuesday, or are we singing?
For real?
Yeah, they're ready. And they're already coming to me with new songs that they want to lead. So, I mean, we don't have any shy singers as kids. So there's a lot of kids that want to lead songs. There's a lot of kids that just want to sing. I mean, so we're blessed.
I told Miss Emily Luna the other day when the young girl sung Amazing Grace and in a childlike voice that she had. I told her that was just a beautiful, beautiful song, which thousands of people have done the rendition of Amazing Grace, but there's something about a little child singing it.
It is, and that wasn't a part of the program either.
It wasn't?
It was not. That happened like the week of Easter, because we had our last practice, and I'm going around talking to the kids where they're going to stand, and she's like, hey, can we sing Amazing Grace? And I'm like, we're singing a song called This Is Amazing Grace. That's one of our songs. She was like, no. I said, well, sing it. What are you talking about? And she started singing the traditional Amazing Grace, and I heard her tone of her voice, and I said, wait till after practice, and we'll let you sing it. So after practice, we were done. I said, hey, come here, Claire. I said, sing it. So I gave her the mic, she started off singing, and everybody was just like, people started crying, and I'm like, we're going to put that in the lineup this Sunday. Like, you're going to sing. I'm going to find a place for you to sing it.
But you know what I like? And again, you have to watch the replay. When she sung it, she stepped out, stepped up.
Sure did.
It's like,
yeah, that boldness.
yes.
Yeah.
And there was another young girl, I think her name is Holly.
That was singing with Wyatt.
Yeah, singing with Wyatt. I mean, when them two were singing like a duet, it was so awesome. But it still blesses me when I watch that. I am so glad that God put this ministry here. Where would those kids be if this ministry was not here?
I don't even want to imagine. I mean, there's plenty of places for them to be and things that get their attention away. But the fact that we have a foundation, a church here that loves them and that will give them a platform, like that means everything.
When are the kids going to sing again?
They're going to sing on May 21st. It'll be a student takeover Sunday.
It's really amazing that the eagerness that these kids and teenagers have. You know, the other Sunday morning I was preaching. I think it was on a Sunday morning, and I said something, you know, that as a pastor I should raise up sons and daughters to be the next generation. And I think you and I had that conversation off screen. And I had a young man, a teenager, come up to me because I said, I'm not going to be able to do what I'm doing all the time. You know,
Yeah.
there'll get to a point where, you know, hopefully I can continue for a long time, but, you know, being realistic. And he said, he came up to me, he says, I want to be the next pastor here.
Wow.
And I looked at him and I smiled. I said, who knows what God's got in store?
Exactly.
But a young
Wow.
teenager, you know. So just the fact that he mentioned that, you know, whether he knows what he's saying or not.
That's what I'm about to say. At a teenager age, like I can't
Yeah.
even think, you know.
But because it's not something you just jump into because it looks,
Exactly.
you know, also because when you're in leadership and you're leading the choir, we've been really blessed to have a front line and the diversity of talents that you have and the willingness for some to be up front, some to be in the back or whatever. But that's not a case here. Everybody enjoys what they're doing for the Lord.
Exactly.
And we've had Jonathan, you know, Beckwith that was here doing the great work and doing things that he did for the kingdom, and then you come along and just continue to enhance it and take it to another level. But it's a joy to see you guys up here.
Yeah, we're so blessed. The people that we have, because I'm willing to challenge them. I'm like, who can lead? Who can sing? Like, who want to be up here? Who want to be back there? You know, so I don't want to create an environment where people feel entitled to hold a microphone.
Okay.
I want to create an environment where if you're on the choir, you sing just as hard if you have a microphone. You know.
Right. If someone wants to join the choir, how can they do that?
They can join the choir online at clintonfwc.org/worship team.
I ran into a pastor just a few days ago, Pastor Marcus Beckton, or Apostle Marcus Beckton, from Way of the Cross Ministry, and he and I was talking at a particular store, and we ran into each other. He's a super pastor, super guy. I love that man. He and his wife Wendy, and he had watched the Easter service, and he was complimenting, you know, and then he asked, you know, who put it all together, and I mentioned your name, and he had at one point had met you at somewhere, and his first response when I mentioned your name, he said, "That's the most humble guy I have ever met."
Wow.
And so your reputation precedes you. You're not pompous and arrogant or anything like that. And I think that's why so many people in Sampson County and other counties and people in this church love Kenyon and Jasmine and Jax and your new addition.
Yeah, Kaysen. Yep.
Kaysen.
Yep.
They love you guys. And thank you for making this ministry what it is today with your talents and your skills. If you had an advice that you can give to anybody, to music leaders, to churches, what would that advice be?
I would say put God first. And as I stated before, be content, but don't be complacent. And one thing that I want our church and our worship ministry to stand on is Acts 2, verse 1, where they talk about being at Pentecost and they were all on one accord with one mind. And if we all can be on one accord every Sunday morning, every Tuesday night at practice, or whenever you guys practice, then I think we can do great things in this world.
Thank you, Minister Kenyon. We look forward to working with other choirs in the community. Kingdom Life Fellowship with Pastor Leonard Henry. We are going to be getting together, having some series of services where our choirs are coming together. And I think our community needs to see that, hear that, feel that, know that. Because we're in different churches don't mean that we're different.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I told my team on Tuesday night at practice, that I don't want us to be a one-dimensional choir. I want to be able to sing Southern gospel. I want us to be able to sing contemporary Christian music, gospel music, like the whole spectrum, so that we can minister to all people.
That is so true. And I thought I was about to close, but that is so true because our congregation is represented by different ethnic groups and culture, and I am not limited to one style.
Right, me either.
Sometimes depends on what kind of mood I'm in.
Exactly. Yeah,
I
that
tune
sets
into
the
what,
tone.
yeah. And so, again, I can't state this enough that music is a very powerful, powerful thing. And I think that's one reason why the devil fights music in the church. Because if he can bring division
Oh yeah,
in the
music.
area of music,
Yeah, he got you then.
he's got the church. Yeah. You know, we don't have this issue here. Years ago it used to be, but we don't have it here. You know, it's too loud, it's not loud enough, too long, too short. But there is power in that music. And I've actually had mega pastors, and I won't call no name, but I've had mega pastors to tell me that well-known pastors in this country tell me that their biggest struggles in their ministry was in the realm of music.
Yeah, I've seen that growing up as well in different churches, you know, with the musicians having egos and
Yes.
and you know, wanting this way and that way and not being humble. You know, growing, I just knew that I would not be that. I did not want to fit into that mode. I wanted to create a lane for myself where I can play any kind of genre of music and be able to worship the Lord.
Right, right. And that's what I love about this. Because a lot of people don't know Southern gospel.
No, they don't.
A lot of people don't know the contemporary or the soulish African American music, which that's what I like.
Yeah.
And but a lot of people, you know, don't know that. And fortunately, thank the good Lord, we are able to provide that. But one thing, and we'll close with this. One thing I will say. You guys never sang to us or for us. You're always singing unto the Lord. And that's what gets us into the realm of God's Spirit. I want the audience, I want you to pray not only for Kenyon and Jasmine and his two sons, but I want you to pray for him as a minister of music, because he is fighting devils in the spiritual realm when it comes to in the music, to present the right music at the right time, the right songs and the right lyrics. But not only for him, but all minister of music in our county and in churches, because it's a very powerful tool to have ministers that are in tune with the Spirit of God and flowing with the pastor or pastors that are singing or that are preaching and they're singing, because you guys are plowing the field basically for the seed to be presented. Send your love to Kenyon. Let him know that you appreciate him right now. Give him a shout out on your Facebook and say, let Kenyon know you love him, and you're going to be praying for him and Jasmine. And I just thank you, sir, for all that you have done and all that you're going to do for the kingdom of God. And I just pray that you will just keep on fighting this battle.
Yes,
Help
sir.
me, because I need you.
Hey, I'm with you.
All right. Listen, thank you guys for tuning in tonight on Beyond the Pew. And as I said, reach out to Kenyon and let him know you appreciate his effort, and go to our webpage and see how you can serve along with Kenyon. Until the next time, God bless you. We love you and we appreciate you. Have a wonderful evening. God bless.